All right, so we're going to watch this speech. It is from Ann Dorn. She is the wife of the slain David Dorn, who was a retired police captain in, I believe, St. Louis. If not somewhere in the Missouri area. I don't know exactly. I'm sure she'll say it. It literally says widow of slain police officer right there. We will talk about, I'm just going to break down her speech, but I'm obviously not going to treat her like she's a politician. I just heard that this was, in fact, a powerful speech. And one of the things that led me to believe that this was a powerful speech is because when I saw the leftist media headlines post this speech, it was David Dorn's kids, like they found one of his kids or relatives to essentially say something bad about the widow for speaking at a Trump thing. So they couldn't attack anything in the speech, but instead they found somebody to that was related to him that they could say basically pulls rank over him to say something bad. So yeah, I'm gonna watch this first. I have the Sandman after this because after this it's Enter Sandman, Metallica reference. If anybody gets it, I know 5 songs in my entire life, so if I reference a song, you guys should be proud. But without further ado, let's get into Ann Dorn's RNC speech, which is obviously from her home. Pictured behind here is David Dorn, by the way, and these are all his police stuff.
Introduced to my husband David, father of 5, brother of 12, grandfather of 10, friend to thousands. He was the most kind, dedicated, loving life partner I could have hoped for. He had a big smile and a heart to match. He was blessed with the gift of gab, and that gift.
Yeah, I could already tell this is not going to be. There's like not going to be much analysis of this because I could hear the pain in her voice, and the fact that there's like over 100 dislikes to this speech is kind of absurd. Like, it's rear. Oh, Jeff Holiday. That's who you were referencing. We'll talk about that after. But yeah, the fact that there's 100 dislikes under this is totally absurd. Like the woman lost her husband. I don't care if you don't like her politics or that you don't like Orange Man. I don't care. Orange Man bad doesn't supersede every like moral pre-qualification for me. So, you know.
Gift enabled him to touch souls and inspire people, especially young people. Oh, how kids loved him, and they really loved him back. Dave was all about service. He served 38 years in the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department.
All right, so it was St. Louis. I knew they would say it in the thing. I was 99% sure, but you don't want to report something that's inaccurate about somebody who passed away. And for those of you who don't remember, David Dorn was killed in front of a pawn shop. And there's a video of him lying dead on the street, which is just horrific for like this woman to have to know is out there in the world. Where even the guy that's there is like, dude, you shot this man over a TV, like a television set. That's what they killed David Dorn over. I remember that just being out on Twitter randomly, just stumbled across my feed. I try to avoid, death, especially when you're actually seeing the guy's face when he dies. Like, some blurry video is one thing, but I just remember the guy's voice, and that was, I believe the guy who found him was just like a stranger. You know what I mean? The guy's voice was just like his voice was cracking because he couldn't believe what was going on, and like that's how horrific of an incident this was. So, yeah, it just horrible in every way, and I can't believe that she's being attacked. I mean, honestly, what am I saying? I can't believe that. This is like American politics now. We attack widowers of dead retired officers who are trying to stop looting in a pawn shop in their neighborhood. Like, that's what we do in America now.
And 6 years as chief of police as the Moline Acres Police Department. After 44 years, he retired from law enforcement, but he never retired from helping a friend in need.
44 years. Like, if you work as a cop, for those of you who might not know the context around this, if you work as a cop, then you what you call it. If you work as a cop, then it's like usually 20 years. Like in New York, it's 20 years and you can retire. He did double that plus 4 years than what it would normally take to retire. In my city, the NYPD, 20 years and you have a lifetime pension. And you have to be 21 to enter the NYPD. So 20 years, you're 41 years old. You still have your whole life ahead of you. Like, he did double that. That's insane. And, it's just, It's just horrific and unnecessary.
Since he befriended every person he met, he was a very busy man. One example of that was his friendship with a young man named Lee. David met him when Lee was just a kid, after members of his family were attacked and murdered. Dave took a special interest in the boy. They bonded and their friendship grew and remained strong throughout the years. Lee eventually opened a pawn shop. He trusted Dave.
Oh, so he was definitely protecting a pawn shop of somebody that's like parents were killed. Let me just make sure I heard that correctly. I don't want to misstate it.
And their friendship grew and remained strong throughout the years. David met him when Lee was just a kid, after members of his family were attacked and murdered.
Okay, not as necessarily his parents, but members of his family. All right.
Dave took a special interest in the boy. They bonded and their friendship grew and remained strong throughout the years. Lee eventually opened a pawn shop. He trusted Dave implicitly and asked Dave to help with security. David readily agreed. Whenever the shop's alarm would go off, the alarm company called Dave. He would investigate. If he got a call after I went to bed, he would wake me up and tell me he was going to Lee's, just to make sure everything was all right.
Honestly, this is... I didn't hear this before, and... Ugh, God. So, like, one of the things that you don't know, like, I often mock my educational background because I'm like, it's not that useful. Like, you can learn a lot of this stuff intuitively. But one of the things that people say drives somebody to be a law enforcement officer, there's two of them, and I don't remember the first. The first one's called the Tower, and I don't remember what that one is. But the other one is the smell of the victim's blood. That basically, like, these people are so motivated by the plight of victims that they're essentially called in a way to serve, like, well beyond, like a normal call to action. And that's what drives people to become cops. Like, hearing the story of this, where he takes an interest in this young man's life after members of his family died, this is a smell of the victim's blood kind of call to service. And even after he retired, he's still the point man for this guy, and who ended up losing family members when he was a cop years later. It's like a psychological phenomenon where he, like, can't let go of the fact that these people's that this guy's family died. So, like, this is like a textbook example of one of the two things that people say drive people to become cops, like that noble reason that they would become cops. And yeah, I was not expecting to hear this. I thought he was just, protecting his neighborhood. I didn't know he had a personal relationship with the guy.
Right. Most of the time they were false alarms, triggered by a storm or animals. But I never rested easily until I heard Dave's key turn in the door, knowing he was home safe. The alarm that went off the morning of June 2nd was for real. It was a violent night in St. Louis. 4 officers were shot. Others were hit with rocks and fireworks. At least 5 businesses were damaged, looted, or set on fire. As the Officer Wellness Coordinator and CIT Coordinator with the police department, I was keenly aware of their rioting and spent the evening getting ready to mobilize support for officers who were impacted. After I'd gone to bed, David received a call from Lee's alarm company. The front door of the pawn shop had been breached. This time he didn't wake me up to tell me.
Yeah, this is horrible. It's gut-wrenching. I don't know. I can't. There's like no commentary to add. So
He probably knew I would have tried to stop him or insist on going with him. As I slept, looters were ransacking the shop. They shot and killed David in cold blood, and then live streamed his execution and his last moments on earth.
I mean, yeah, I didn't watch this speech, but to me, that would have been a thing that would have like stuck with me. Um, the fact that everybody could see this, it's horrible. Like, I mean, just think about like the disparity in coverage from somebody like a David Dorn, who's doing everything right in his life. He's compelled to serve. He's so much invested in the victims that he deals with that he's still in this guy's life, and he's still defending his property. And then this is how he dies. Like, stellar life, stellar record of public service that continues. First of all, double plus four again what it takes to retire as a police officer in the city that I live in, plus four, and then after that, he's still on top of that helping out as a post retirement security guard. Like, this is just a guy who loves to serve, loves to interact with people, and he's shot over a TV, and his death is distributed like across the internet for use. It's a pawn shop. It's a used TV too.
David's grandson was watching the video on Facebook in real time, not realizing he was watching his own grandfather dying on the sidewalk.
Jesus. So I've been skipping over some of the like a lot of the RNC stuff. I know I heard a lot about this speech specifically, but I hadn't watched it before. It's like a gut punch after a gut punch. That's horrific. Like, you have a grandfather like this, like somebody who, by all accounts, is a great guy. He's not only involved in his family's lives, but he's involved in the lives of, again, like, former victims of crimes that he investigated, and he dies on the street, and his grandkid ends up watching it live. Like, it's crazy. Like,
I learned of all this around 4 a.m. when our doorbell rang. The chief of police was standing outside. I wondered why Dave had not answered the door. It wasn't uncommon for him to be up watching TV at this time. I called out to him several times. There was no reply. He just wasn't there. I let in the chief, and fighting back tears, he uttered the words every officer's spouse dreads. I relive that horror in my mind every single day. My hope is that having you relive it with me now will help shake this country from this nightmare we are witnessing in our cities and bring about positive, peaceful change.
I mean, the fact that this was portrayed the way that it was by the mainstream media it just shows how disgusting our media is. Like, they portrayed the RNC as a hateful, like, racist convention where only racists were out there speaking, and like, this is a woman, like, pouring her soul out there about the death of her husband, who did nothing wrong. Like, he actually didn't do anything wrong. Like, he was defending, again, a victim from a case that he worked when he was still a police officer, that he was still in his life. And I already know how they're attacking her. They're like, oh, she's a white woman. Like, she has white privilege. She's a racist. Yeah, the white privilege to watch your husband's death on a live stream, on a video that's still out there on the internet, like, publicly. Like, she can never get away from that. You know what I mean? Like, that's why they dug out his daughter to go condemn him for the speech. Like, they needed to find somebody to, like, undercut this. But the idea that your first instinct as the media is to undercut this when she's just saying we need peaceful change, like, we shouldn't let people rioting, it's just disgusting.
How did we get to this point where so many young people are callous and indifferent towards human life? This isn't a video game where you can commit mayhem and then just hit reset and bring all the characters back to life. David is never coming back to me. He was murdered by people who didn't know and just didn't care. He would have done anything to help them. Violence and destruction are not legitimate forms of protest.
Amen, honestly. Like, the fact that this needs to, like, this is a partisan issue, that looting and destruction and killing people in the streets, whether or not they're legitimate forms of protest, is kind of insane. I, but, I mean, Jesus, this is, oof.
They do not safeguard Black lives. They only destroy them. President Trump understands this, has offered federal help to restore order in our communities. In a time when police departments are short on resources and manpower, we need that help. We should accept that help. We must heal before we can affect change, but we cannot heal amid devastation and chaos. President Trump knows we need more Davids in our communities, not fewer.
Yeah, I wish Fox didn't do this, where they have their the videos pop up on certain videos, or at least YouTube. They used to let you disable this, but Jesus.
We need to come together in peace and remember that every life is precious.
It is a very powerful speech. It's very moving, and yeah, David Dorn, like, there was no reason for him to die. Like, again, they shot him over a TV. Like, that's the kind of people, that's the level of character that we're dealing with in these riots. Like, that's considered a civil rights movement. Like, it's absurd. Like, yeah, the Trump endorsement at the end felt a bit weird and out of place. I mean, it was a soft endorsement, like, it wasn't super political, but if you're somebody who's seeing your city be torn up and you want National Guard, and the president's saying yes, National Guard, and other politicians aren't, I get that. But yeah, no, it's a convention. It is a national convention. Like, this is what is done. They bring people out, and they end up endorsing the president. But that wasn't like President Trump is here to save us. This was like a very much, my husband was murdered in the streets. One party is endorsing this looting and ignoring the existence of my husband, so I'll sign on with the other guy. No offense to President Trump or anything, but that's the endorsement that they got. I mean, just think about it. St. Louis is the same place where the McClaskeys are being prosecuted for defending themselves. So we have the McClaskeys defending themselves. They get prosecuted. You have David Dorn, no attention whatsoever paid to his case. Like, people had to naturally pump that case up to get the attention that it deserves. And even then, like what's his name? Jacob Blake reaching into his car for a knife. Like, maybe he had the knife on him, because remember, they found the knife in the area he was reaching. So if he had the knife in his hand and he gets shot, if I get shot, I presume I'm not holding the knife. Like, how much attention does Jacob Blake or Floyd get? Thank you for the subscription, Damon Bowers. I don't know why it came in like that, like the little thing. That's weird. Whatever. I'll worry about my notifications later. Thank you for the subscription. But that's a subscription to my YouTube channel. Okay, so I got a subscription via Twitch Prime. Yeah, oh, there we go. Alright, I have no idea what's going on, so. Yeah, no, but, yeah, for this to not get any attention when Floyd, again, as we talked about in the past, there's an interesting conversation about potential cause of death, and, Blake's not even dead. I mean, I was having this conversation with a few people I won't name, where I was talking about Jacob Blake and the two people who died in the self-defense case at the Jacob Blake riots, and I was thinking, like, imagine dying over somebody like Jacob Blake, somebody who was definitely in the wrong in his own shooting, right? Like, Jacob Blake didn't even die over Jacob Blake. Like, the guy got shot in the back a bunch of times. He survived, and now two people are dead over that. Like, nobody's rioting over David Dorn. Like, we have to hear from his wife. I didn't even know he was married. Like, this is the first time I've heard from his wife. Like I've seen George Floyd's brother all over television, and no disrespect to George Floyd's brother because he said he wants the rioting to stop. Like he said all the right things, but I'd never seen her before. I, I've never heard that story before. I, it's crazy. It's crazy the disparity in attention that these stories get, and it's all politically driven. 100% of it. Like we all know it. Like there's no point in pretending this is not the case.